this modern standard of releasing unfinished games, trying to milk the audience for as much cash as you can during that early release window, well, that continues. But it seems like the quality of the games themselves is continuing to decline while the prices increase, and it's hard not to agree that, yes, this is some kind of nadir for this industry, not just because the games themselves are being released unfinished, but it seems like every aspect of video game development has taken a major turn for the worse. I mean, we're getting a level of poor quality craftsmanship across the board, be it storytelling, graphics, game design. There's some kind of brain drain going on, not just within the video game industry, but our entertainment industries across the board, and also the world of tech and Silicon Valley. And it's no accident that in the woke era, things are changing in a very strange way where tech is becoming ubiquitous. The Internet of Things is starting to creep into everyday life. Your refrigerator is now a GPS tracking system. Your George Foreman grill is collecting data on you. And experimental AI technology is secretly worming its way into almost every aspect of online life, right? And yet, the end-user experience is suffering. Where once, we as Westerners in our entertainment industries were producing these high-quality products almost effortlessly, when now, in 2023, we have access to so much horsepower, and this technology that can just raw, brute force its way into solving so many creative problems. Technology that is more accessible than ever. Even in the indie scene, the tools at our disposal are more powerful than ever. We should be living in some kind of renaissance of entertainment across various industries, movies, video games, and just technology in general. The irony really is that in the woke era, creativity is stifled like never before, and we're seeing the results of this. It's very Randian, it is the John Galt exodus of competency and competent people who know what they're doing and know how to deliver what their consumer base and their audience wants. We're seeing these people being forced out of the industry if they were already present, and if they weren't already there, then there's a barrier to entry. A barrier based on identity, traits, and certain people of the wrong identity are no longer able to work freely and easily in these industries anymore. Even the indie scene is completely inundated with woke gatekeeping, where your resume will be moved to the bottom of the pile. If you want to work in certain sectors, in the tech industries and in entertainment, you will be actively discriminated against based on your unchangeable, immutable surface-level traits. If you have the misfortune to be white, that is. All this virtue signaling masks what at its core is kind of like a hateful seed of anti-whiteness that really does drive a lot of these people. It's based on jealousy and envy, when a lot of young white men that created the video game industry and a lot of other industries in the West, it was built by men who built it because they wanted to build something amazing. They didn't build it to troll black people. They didn't build these things to perpetuate white supremacy or any other excuse that you hear. The wokeists, they're always throwing around these accusations like, wow, there is no group more evil than the straight white cis male. And that's why we have to gatekeep every industry so that these people can never again hold positions of authority where they may, God forbid, create amazing works that will make other groups, I guess, feel inferior. But really, that's you guys making yourselves feel inferior. If you weren't an anti-white prick, you might actually be capable of enjoying some of the amazing works of Western European civilization and all the sub-ethnicities that give said people such an interesting patchwork of diverse culture. To boil all of that down under the label of white, which is just pure negative identity, it's shameful. And really, this entire field of critical race theory and whiteness theory, these intersectional rules that dictate what you can and cannot create and what you can and cannot say, it's absurd. And it's kind of funny because black people enjoy Dragon Ball Z, and yet the only representation contained within that anime is like this black minstrel. Like Mr. Popo is a literal gollywog. dreamt up by some kind of Japanese pervert, and yet he's being enjoyed for being a fun character. Please, can we not critique Mr. Popo through a Marxist lens? Because in a functional meritocracy, without all of the woke posturing for victimhood, really, any group could produce content for society, and if it was successful, then it would live or die based on its success. Whereas in the woke era, of course, we have some kind of strange cultural communism where, out of nothing but contempt and hatred, young white men are forbidden to produce content for their own identity group, and from their own perspective. And if they still want to work in the tech industry and video games and entertainment, they have to be a self-flagellating cuck. They have to produce a game like Redfall, where it's humiliating in its anti-whiteness, you know? I mean, the fact is, the game itself is made by people who are actual anti-white activists. I mean, the entire allegory of the game is that the vampires who are all super pale white skin, well, they represent the toxic whiteness of America, and the diverse cast of heroes, which of course includes an Afro black woman, and this one has some student debt, right? Because yeah, fuck capitalism. And it's that genre of like smirking feminist black lady who, although she's fighting like creatures of the night, she should be terrified. Instead, she smirks and she smashes their faces in and decapitates them and goes, sorry, a little bit too pale in here, am I right, guys? You know? It's like a parody of, like racists making games. I hate using the term racism, but in this case, this form of neo-racism where we persecute white people and laugh in their faces and make a joke out of violence against them in like a kind of weird pre-genocidal fashion, it's kind of creepy, you know? I think a lot of normies are looking at this and going, you know what, the game itself is shit because of the aforementioned brain drain, but also the message is just hostile and kind of gross. It's just so ridiculous, and it's also exhausting, and you can see the consequences of this weird equity happening within culture, where the best products do not rise to the top, where companies don't strive to produce the most resonant, most crowd-pleasing content. They don't want to do that anymore. They want to stick it to the legacy consumer base of almost every industry in the West right now, including, beer companies. I mean, you've been following the whole Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light fiasco, where the company itself have chosen as an ad campaign to basically hold a middle finger up to the face of every Bud Light enjoyer in America and going, yeah, how do you like your beer, shitlord? Now, it's funny that the company is losing revenue, but again, these companies are printing money. For them, all they have to do is fire this stupid feminist woman that was behind this advertising decision. They fire her, they make some half-assed apology, and then continue the subversion in maybe a little bit more of a subtle fashion. But you see it happening. There's another beer company, Miller Lite, and look at their new ad campaign, where there's like a seething Jewess steps out into the frame and she's just lecturing the audience saying, do you know that women invented beer? Hey shitlord, don't assume that you know anything about beer. Beer's about feminism now. And it's like, this is what marketing is now. Marketing has gone from trying to sell your product to as many people as possible to pushing weird bugman political agendas. I mean, that is the key aspect across our entire fucking society. Be it video games, movies, fucking beer, it all has to be in service of some kind of gay mouse utopia where like a normal straight man that has done nothing whatsoever to anybody to deserve this level of hatred, where that guy's at the bottom of the totem pole, spat on by society at large for having the audacity to have built civilization in the first place. Yeah, it really is no surprise that we are having this John Galt-esque decline in competence, because a lot of straight white men that would once have dreamt of working in the movie industry or the video game industry, they know that there's no point. In fact, they probably know that there's no point in participating in this society at all. I mean, we're reaching the point where a lot of men are simply going, you know what? I don't need to be a millionaire. All I need to do is just step out. I'm going to step out. I'm going to find a woman who I can tolerate, have a few kids, and I'm going to whittle woodwork and become a carpenter or something, and let this gay clown society eat itself. Because it's hilarious. I mean, one of the key premises of wokeism is that the white men of the West are not, in fact, uniquely competent, and the success of Western societies wasn't due to some kind of innate Western European consciousness, like the ability to organize, to think creatively and abstractly, and cooperate effectively. The woke thesis is that, nope, all of that is just obfuscating what is, in essence, a system of white supremacy that promotes only white men at the expense of everybody else in society. Women, black people, brown people, they all get the short end of the stick because the system itself is holding those groups down. And, as the years go by and we see fundamentally worse products being produced across the board, we ask ourselves the question, maybe those young white men who are doing nothing to hurt anyone, they were just trying to work effectively and succeed in their profession. Maybe that success was not built on the backs of bigotry and oppression, right? But maybe they were actually competent. Maybe these different groups in society are not fundamentally equal. Maybe they have trait characteristics based on genetics that makes this idea that all human beings in the world are just interchangeable units of production. What we're seeing now in 2023 and this brain drain going on, it debunks the entire woke worldview completely, or at least unmasks it. Because at the core, at the heart of wokeism lies this ugly seed of anti-white hatred. And that's really what's motivating them. It's envy, it's jealousy, it's hatred. And then inevitably, in my comment section, some goober will come in and be like, how dare you say something like that? It's like this faux outrage, I guess, designed to just try and shame the person that would dare criticize these postmodern values that the wokeists describe, And it's always such a moral outrage, isn't it? Ironically. A moral outrage being espoused by people who themselves are immoral to an almost satanic degree. And they've actually, via academia, they've actually enshrined immorality as the true virtues of society. It's like the more immoral you are, the more inverted your sense of good and evil are, and right and wrong, the more bent completely backward you are in terms of your humanity, a better person you are. When it's like, why do any of us still put up with this shit? When really the solution is to turn that weapon of critique 180 and say, no, how dare you, Mr. Bugman, how dare you deny me the right to feel pride in my identity? Because if we're going to all play this game of competing identities, then either it's ethno-nationalism for everybody or ethno-nationalism for nobody.